Section 5, Areas of Real Estate Importance. What is an earnest money deposit? Earnest money is what you put down before the closing on a house to show how serious you are about purchasing it. It's also known as good faith deposit, binder deposit. There's a lot of names. Earnest money protects the seller if the buyer backs out. It's typically around 1 to 3% of the sales price and is held in escrow until the deal is complete.
Commingling is mixing personal funds with funds that belong to other people. Alabama allows brokerage firms to open trust accounts using personal funds to maintain a minimum balance without violating the commingling rule.
Conversion is when a licensee is entrusted with the funds to be deposited into a trust account and then it's converted or used for personal use. It's illegal.
The Civil Rights Act of 1866 prohibits discrimination based on race in all real estate transactions, and there's no exceptions. Jones versus Mayer Supreme Court decision is what brought this all into light. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 ended racial segregation in schools, workplaces, and public accommodations. It prohibited discrimination based on race, color, religion, or national origin in public accommodations and public facilities. The Civil Rights Act of 1968, the Fair Housing Act. Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 made discrimination illegal in the sales, leasing, advertising sales or rentals, financing, or brokerage services if based on race, color, religion, sex was in 1974, national origin, and in 1988 amendments added for handicapped and familial status. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 created to eliminate discrimination based on familial status, race, sex, handicap status, color, religion, and national origin. Familial status is families with children under 18 and pregnant women. Handicap status is any physical or mental impairment that interferes with normal life functioning. What about those retirement communities, 55 and older? Housing for older persons, how does that fit into the fair housing? Well, those are exempt from the familial status protection provided, as long as all the units are occupied by persons 62 or older, or at least 80% of the units are occupied by one or more persons 55 or older. There are exemptions that apply, and only under two conditions: that a real estate licensee is not involved and there's no discriminatory advertising. Some special exemptions include housing operated by religious organizations and private clubs not operated for commercial purposes. Religious organizations may restrict the units to the members of their religion, provided they do not discriminate in accepting membership, and then private clubs may restrict units to its members. Three main prohibited activities under fair housing is steering, blockbusting, and redlining. Steering is the channeling of home seekers to or away from neighborhoods. Blockbusting is using the entry or rumor of entry that a protected class is moving in order to urge owners to sell. And then redlining, that's denying loans or insurance coverage or different terms and conditions for homes in certain neighborhoods. The Fair Housing poster pledges adherence to the Fair Housing Act. It is displayed at real estate brokerage offices and mortgage lending offices, and it's available free from HUD. Failure to display the poster may be used as evidence of discrimination in a complaint. Complaints are filed with HUD under the Fair Housing Act, and there's a 1-year time limit. Actions taken by the Department of Justice. Civil suits are filed in the Federal District Court. Real estate licensees have specific responsibilities and liability where it comes to fair housing. The case will be heard by an administrative law judge. A conciliation is the resolution of a complaint with the first 100 days. Otherwise, it goes forward with a charge of illegal discrimination. A civil action may be brought in federal court by the complainant within 2 years of the alleged discriminatory act. The Attorney General may bring a civil action in federal court. Speaking of real estate professionals' liability and responsibility, there are implications for real estate professionals. Real estate professionals must act legally, doing their part to avoid discriminatory practices. The Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 protects employment and accessibility rights of individuals with mental and physical disabilities. Disabled cannot be denied access to public transportation, public accommodations, and commercial facilities. This includes real estate brokerage offices, even if it's located in a private residence. Modifications may be required if readily achievable. American with Disabilities Act requires accessibility rights of individuals with disabilities with full and equal access to the facilities and services. Modifications may be required if readily achievable. Fair housing requires property managers to ensure that marketing practices do not violate fair housing laws. Discrimination based on the 7 protected classes and do not engage in blockbusting, steering, or redlining. Advertising must inform people that they're dealing with a licensee or brokerage firm, and the broker is responsible for all advertising. All advertising must include the name of the brokerage firm, and if it doesn't, it's considered blind advertisement, and that is illegal.
Truth in advertising. 3 things a licensee has to be aware of: puffing, misrepresentation, and fraud. Puffing is exaggerating a property's benefits. For instance, if I have a ditch running through my backyard and it always has water in it, I might say I have a water view outside my kitchen window. Well, if you stand at my kitchen window, you're going to see water in a ditch. And am I not viewing water? But that's an exaggeration. It's not a lie, but it's an extreme exaggeration. Misrepresentation, you either lie about something or you don't tell people about something. One of the two. When it's fraud, that's above lies and omissions, and it results in monetary damages, compensatory damages. So if you get a big old long scenario question and they want to know, is it puffing, misrepresentation, or fraud? The only time you're going to choose fraud is if it talks about monetary compensatory damages. Otherwise, it's going to be puffing if they're exaggerating, and misrepresentation if they're lying or omission, not telling someone about something.
The Truth in Advertising Act. Whether it's on the internet, radio, television, or anywhere else, federal law says that an ad must be truthful, not misleading, and when appropriate, backed by scientific evidence. The Federal Trade Commission enforces the same standards no matter where the ad appears. The FTC looks especially close at advertising claims that can affect a consumer's health or their pocketbooks.
Cease and desist order. That denotes a legally enforceable order from a court or government agency directing someone to stop engaging in a particular activity, and the advertising must stop immediately. Financial penalties include fines up to $43,792 per day if a violation occurs in the future, and they may be required to report to the FTC periodically about claims and new ads.
Real estate has experienced a lot of advancement in technology. You have the National Association of Realtors Internet Data Exchange, that's called the IDX policy. We have smartphones, email, texting, social media, internet advertising, e-sign, contract, you name it, we've got it. The Internet Data Exchange policy of the National Association of Realtors allows members to limit the internet distribution of listing information. Overall, the internet is invaluable for communication, research, marketing, and advertising of a brokerage, and includes the use of email, websites, and social networking, all of which must be conducted in compliance with applicable federal and state laws.
Let's try to avoid MLS violations. They're not cheap. So some of that would be if you were to hold off in putting a listing because you think an offer is going to come in and you want to get both sides of it. It could be certain triggering words referencing to fair housing. They have certain words you cannot use on the MLS. Also, not adding photos of the property or photos that misrepresent the condition.
All right, prohibited communications. You have the National Do Not Call Registry, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, the Junk Fax Prevention Act, the Controlling the Sexual Assault of Non-Solicited Pornography and Marketing Act of 2003, otherwise known by the CAN-SPAM Act, and Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Here's exceptions to the National Do Not Call list. When an agent is representing a potential buyer, they may call the for sale by owner, provided the buyer is interested in the property. Agents may also contact individuals with whom they've had an established business relationship for up to 18 months, and anyone that's had a business inquiry from them 3 months. The Children's Online Privacy Protection Act has restrictions on collection of information from children that are younger than 13 by means of internet, including mobile apps, and are specified in COPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Confidential information requirements. This requires and prohibits any confidential and personally identifiable information from being disclosed or accessed unless authorization is provided in writing.